really can't be a well-established hero without having some ops that want to see nothing but your downfall. DC Comics is full of some of the most hateful, sadistic, and maniacal characters seen in comics period. Some of these lunatics embody pure hatred itself. As the title suggests, this is a part 2 to the biggest haters in DC, so if you haven't seen the first part, I'd highly recommend checking that out if you're wondering why some of the more iconic villains aren't listed in this video. Not even gonna waste any more time, gonna get straight to it.
Get your special sock out, nerds. It's gonna get good.
Most of you watching are probably familiar with Blackfire thanks to the Teen Titans cartoon that first aired in 2003, with the second episode of the series focusing on the dynamic between Starfire and her sister Blackfire. I know for a fact she was one of the major catalysts in a bunch of y'all gooners out there being infatuated with a certain demographic of female cartoon characters, on the same tier with Raven, Gwen from Total Drama, Shigo from Kim Possible, and Rogue from X-Men Evolution. While Blackfire is still a bad guy, the dynamic between her and Starfire was a lot more tame in the cartoon series, where they both kept in contact with one another after Starfire landed on Earth. Since it was a kid's cartoon, her devious nature was somewhat toned down compared to her comic counterpart, cause whoo boy, taking into account the things she did in the comics,
it's worse. It's so much worse.
This woman Blackfire went out of her way to make sure her little sister was sold into slavery. Tamaran was a planet guided by love and peace, where there was no need for wars or any conflict. Starfire, also known as Coriander, is the younger sister of Commander, or Blackfire, and let me tell you, her older sister has genuinely hated her guts, quite literally since the day of her birth. Essentially, Commander had a disease that prevented her from converting solar energy into the power of flight, which was something the average Tamaranian could do. Because of this, she was deemed deficient and unfit to take up the role of Princess of Tamaran, a title that would instead be bestowed upon Coriander once she would come of age. As a child, Commander would plot her revenge and do anything to make Coriander's life just that much more difficult. I'm talking killing her childhood pet just cause she don't like seeing her little sister having a good time. She would then reveal all of Tamaran's defense secrets to the Citadel, who had battled with Tamaran in the past, and doing so caused the deaths of millions of Tamaranians during the Citadel's attacks on the planet. A truce between the Citadel and Tamaran was called that demanded a sacrifice, to which Coriander's father sold her to the Citadel as a slave in order to prevent Tamaran's destruction. Unsurprisingly, it was her older sister's request to have her sold as a slave. Ever since Starfire's escape to Earth and her becoming a member of the Teen Titans, Blackfire became hyperfixated on finding her sister, determined to torture her, kill all her friends, and destroy the entire planet Earth simply for being associated with her. Don't be sleeping on Wonder Woman's villains now. I know a lot of you bozos like to have the mentality of Diana doesn't have any good villains, none of them are noteworthy or they're all pretty boring. If you were gonna mention any of Wonder Woman's villains, you gotta mention the king of misogyny himself, Dr. Psycho. Ain't nobody in comics hates women better than Psycho. This man be having LeBron level stats of performance when it comes to being sexist. Edgar Sisgo is a former psychologist with telepathic abilities that allow him to alter the reality of those of his choosing. Wonder Woman's sheer existence pisses this dude off to no end, doing everything in his power to try and devalue her status as a prominent member of the Justice League. His deep hatred for women stems from a bad experience in his earlier years. His pre-crisis origin depicted him as someone who was tiny with a big old head, thus making him the butt of jokes from his peers, and because it was the girls who would snicker and laugh at him, he decided then and there to hate all women.
Really, nigga?
He used his research to hypnotize a woman into marrying him, which is when he discovered he had the ability to alter his appearance to the eyes of another person. Then he tried to hypnotize other women into finding him more attractive. The more modern retelling of his origins centers around his wife falling for a man who had a more developed stature than him. So on that note alone, he decided to have a vendetta against the entire opposite sex. This man will go on to have his own dedicated podcast yapping about how trash Wonder Woman is and the patriarchy and how some of these women are trying to take away your manhood and all that. I know this nigga would do gangbusters via the YouTube channel. Next up, we gotta talk about this bum Thomas Elliott, better known as Hush. He saw Bruce Wayne with all that fortune when he and Bruce were little kids after Bruce's parents died and was like,
"No, fuck that! On everything, y'all got me fucked up! On my mama, y'all got me fucked up!"
As many of you know, Bruce Wayne and Thomas Elliott were childhood best friends, with Thomas being one of Bruce's only close friends as a child, since his parents' fortune caused other kids to keep their distance. Thomas grew up in a household with an abusive father, and his mother never stood up for him. Instead, she would teach her son how to utilize strategy and logic in order to protect himself physically. He orchestrated a plan as a child to have both of his parents die in a car crash by severing a brake line in their vehicle. Thomas Wayne, being the renowned surgeon he was, failed to save Thomas's father, but he was able to save his mother's life. This angered Thomas as he wanted his family fortune all to himself. He had to wait years for his mother to die from cancer. On the other hand, Bruce lost both of his parents, and Thomas deemed him lucky to be an orphan with all that money at his disposal, which in turn made him resentful toward Bruce.
I have a job for you, Batman. Bring me Bruce Wayne, or I bring down this tower. Why Wayne? The two of you were friends. That brat's family destroyed me. And now, I will destroy him. The Wayne stood by you. Ah, yes, the great Surgeon Thomas Wayne. To think he was once my idol. Until he ruined everything. He did all he could to save your parents after the crash. I'm sorry you lost your father. But he saved your mother's life. He denied me what was rightfully mine. The car crash wasn't an accident. It was you. You wanted to kill them. I only want what I deserve. Bruce Wayne had his riches handed to him on a plate. He never had to fight for anything in his life. Now bring me Wayne, or I'll destroy this tower and everything he stands for.
He hated the fact that Bruce got the opportunity to travel the world, gaining all types of knowledge for his heroic efforts, while Thomas had to deal with his mother. Once he knew of Batman's identity, he hated Bruce even more, so he conjured up a plan that involved the likes of Killer Croc, Poison Ivy, Joker, Harley Quinn, Scarecrow, Clayface / Jason Todd just to mess with Batman. The only reason he came back after the events of Batman Hush was because he had heard rumors of an organization called the Black Glove that was all about wanting to kill Batman. He thought, yeah, ain't nobody doing that before me. Hush even went as far as to undergo plastic surgery so that his face resembles that of Bruce Wayne, with the goal of ruining Bruce's life and taking away all of his fortune. To cap things off, it would only be right to talk about arguably the biggest crybaby of the DC universe, Superboy Prime, who's also a power scaler's biggest wet dream. Infinite Crisis was basically a sequel to Crisis on Infinite Earths, the gigantic crossover event that ran from 1985 to 1986 with the sole purpose of hard rebooting DC Comics, as the continuity was getting too convoluted with the multiverse and stories keeping track of the multiple different Earths established. All but 5 Earths in the multiverse were destroyed, and a new Earth was born where the surviving Earths were combined into a single history / timeline. Some of the survivors of the previously destroyed multiverse included Superman and Lois Lane from Earth 2, which was essentially the golden age of DC Comics, Alexander Luthor from Earth 3, and Superboy Prime from Earth Prime. They all set up shop in this pocket dimension where they could watch events unfold in the new Earth. However, as they watched the new rebooted continuity unfold over the decades, they weren't very satisfied with how our heroes had been handling things. They had hoped that the new Earth would be in good hands, but as they watched the timeline progress, they noticed a darkness that seemed to be spreading, with so many heroes dying or losing their way. So much crap had happened in that time frame, like Superman dying to Doomsday, Batman getting his back blown out by Bane, the death of Jason Todd Robin, how Jordan became Parallax, the whole ordeal with Identity Crisis, Wonder Woman killing Maxwell Lord. They were out here watching these heroes fumble the timeline like, yo, what the hell they doing over there? So the survivors of the pre-Crisis multiverse are like, hey, what if we just brought back the old multiverse Earths and used it as a replacement for this current Earth? Superboy Prime, having not even interacted with him yet, was already hating on Connor Kent Superboy, the clone with half the DNA of Superman and Lex Luthor, going off on how Connor has the perfect life he always wanted with friends and loved ones, but isn't doing enough to help the other heroes with the OMAC androids that were killing metahumans across the globe. Superboy Prime travels to Smallville to confront Superboy on how he would make for a better replacement and a better Superboy than Connor ever could. As Superboy Prime is trying to fight Connor Kent Superboy, the Justice Society, Doom Patrol, and the Teen Titans all come to Connor's aid in stopping Superboy Prime. He ends up killing a few heroes in the process, to the point where speedsters like Wally West, Jay Garrick, and Bart Allen imprison him in the Speed Force. Not only did he find a way to escape from the Speed Force, he also rocked a new armor that served as an energy collector that constantly fed him yellow sunlight. By the end of the book, he just wanted to straight up destroy planet Oa in hopes of destroying the universe and starting anew so that he would be the only hero left, just like how it was on his Earth. Took the combined might of a bunch of Green Lanterns, post-Crisis Superman, and Earth 2 Superman just to put a stop to his antics. Those are just some of the more prominent haters in DC Comics that I've come across while reading some of the source material. I'm sure there are plenty of other characters who could be considered top tier haters of a particular hero or a group of heroes that are prominent figures in the DC universe. Some of the levels of hate seen within these villains, it's almost inspirational to a degree. To be that motivated by hatred on a near daily basis just to make the life of a superhero as miserable as possible, shoot, I gotta respect it, not gonna lie. Who is the most devious hater out of the bunch listed here? Whoever it might be, I know for a fact they're the type of people you do not want to be caught trifling with.